Well, first of all, you can thank both my boys, Cameron and Parker, for, I guess, challenging me to up my game when it comes to YouTube. So here goes. I am going to provide a series of videos that are made specifically for those who are driving to work and need something uplifting to kind of start their day, or maybe if you're driving home and you're stuck in traffic and you want something that will just feed your mind as well as hopefully your inspiration and your motivation. So the first topic I'm going to share with you is emotional intelligence. Now, some people confuse intelligence with education. Now, let me first kind of peel back the layers a little bit and let you have some insight into the difference. There are people who are highly educated who lack intelligence, and there are people who are very intelligent who lack formal education. Emotional intelligence, though, is a little bit different because it gets into what we as individuals view others and our ability to manage our own emotions while we try to understand the emotions of others. So if you think about it in the context of our own emotional awareness, how do we identify what our root emotion is? Are we angry? Are we concerned? Are we afraid? And then once we do that, how do we harness those emotions so that we can control them in an environment that may require us to be professional or to not give in to the emotional response that is natural in all of us. And it is important for us to be able to take action when those emotional triggers hit us because they can cause us to do things that are very counterproductive to what we're trying to accomplish. So I want you to think about what it means to have high emotional intelligence. So it could be what we call EI. And one of the things that I'm going to probably reinforce more often than not is that there is an idea that done is better than perfect. In other words, people with high emotional intelligence realize that it doesn't have to be perfect in order for it to be good enough or for it to be acceptable or for it to be something that we're proud of. Sometimes we can seek perfection so much that we can't get something finished or let it go. I struggle with that when I'm writing my books. How many times do I need to edit the book to make sure that there are no mistakes in the manuscript? And truthfully, it's very unlikely for someone to publish any long piece of work that there not be some imperfections in it. And most people don't care about the imperfections, they care about the message. People with high emotional intelligence, they understand how to balance work and play. They understand that in life, if we're too much about our work, then we don't enjoy this short time that we have on earth. If we're too much about having fun, we don't get to accomplish the things necessary in order to live a fulfilling life. People with high emotional intelligence embrace change. Now, I've had people push me, are you saying change for the sake of change? I think that's exactly what I mean. If we're not willing to change constantly, how do we know what the next step in life is for us? How do we know what the next great thing? One of the most amazing stories in our life is Pokemon Go. People that are in the gaming world know that that game had been around for years, but it didn't gain any traction. And it wasn't until they made one simple change that Pokemon Go exploded like nothing that I'd seen to that point in my life. That game 2 years ago in July generated $250 million in revenue in 1 month. Now, can you imagine $250 million in 1 month? It put a dent in the globe. I don't think there were many young people that had not heard of or knew what Pokemon Go was. And I thought, wow, it burned out fast. I said, I'll never see anything like that again. Well, I was wrong. February of last year, another game repeated and blew Pokemon Go out of the water when it came to generating revenue as a business. There was a game that last year, 2017, generated $400 million in 1 month. $400 million in revenue in the month of February 2018. I want you to think about what that game is. Most of you probably know what I'm talking about. Most of you have kids who are probably still spending money on that game. A game where the cost to play is totally free. There's no charge, but yet it's able to generate $400 million in revenue in 1 month. If you know the game I'm talking about, it's Fortnite. And if you have anybody under the age of 20 in your family or in your circle, they know what Fortnite is. So when I'm talking about change, how do you get to the next step of anything if you're not willing to change? And how do you know that the next change that you make is going to give you something remarkable or something that may mark or make a dent in the universe? People with high emotional intelligence are not easily distracted. They're able to focus on what they need to. And people like me that suffer from undiagnosed ADD understand how easy it is to be distracted. But the times in my life when I find the most reward are when I'm focused in, whether it's giving a speech or doing training or teaching a class. When I'm focused in that moment, I lack distraction. I am focused on the audience. I'm focused on what I'm trying to accomplish. And it's a powerful motivation for me to get satisfaction from the work. People who are emotionally intelligent are empathetic. You know, I wrote an article recently about how it's difficult for leaders to make decisions that are emotionally charged or emotionally motivated, and that when we make decisions based on emotion rather than rational decision thinking, we are usually making decisions that are not based in fact or not based in some sort of substance that allows us to make the best decisions. Now, the other side of the coin is making fully rational decisions is not always possible either, because no matter what decision we make, if there is a chance that it could hurt someone, including ourselves, there's going to be an emotional component to that decision. Think about it like this. If someone has an employee that they need to terminate, and this termination is going to impact their family, it's going to impact, all facets of their lives, how do you not have some sort of emotional response to that decision? How do you not have some sort of emotional resistance to making that decision? And when I'm coaching a leader through that difficult process, one of the things I tell them, I said, it's normal. Unless you're a sociopath, it's going to be hard to sleep the night before you let someone go. I said, but if there's someone that was hurting the organization or that was bringing negativity to an organization, then the chances are you'll sleep well the night after you do it. So this idea that we can't separate what's emotional from what's rational is, I think it's founded with some merit. I mean, it's hard to separate that, but people with high EI are always going to have an empathetic nature. People with high EI are also people that know their strengths and their weaknesses. They're what I call a transparent personality. They're willing to ask for feedback. They're willing to get people to open up and share how they might improve. People that don't really know their weaknesses are usually people that tend to be a little bit more narcissistic than most. They don't want to know where they struggle. They don't want to know what they're weak at. And as a consequence, they don't ask people for that information. People with high EI are also self-motivated. There's a euphemism we use for speakers like me. They call me a motivational speaker. And truth is, motivation is not the word that I would use. I would rather use the word inspirational speaker, because motivation is almost something that's intrinsic. You can't really motivate another person. They have to bring some level of motivation to work, to their job, to what they play. And if there's not some degree of self-motivation in an individual, I think it's very hard for that to become something that comes to them externally. I think they can be inspired to do things. They can be inspired to take a chance, to take a risk, to go back to school, to write a book, to write a song. But motivation, especially long-term motivation, is very difficult for someone to give another individual. People with high emotional intelligence, they don't dwell in the past. We carry a lot of emotional water when it comes to the things that have happened in our past. And we can dwell on them. We can, we can really beat ourselves up pretty badly when it comes to things in the past. People with high emotional intelligence are able to let it go. So, hey, you know what? It was bad. It wasn't something I'm proud of. It's not something that I want to repeat, but it's over, and I will not attach any more emotional energy to that situation, to that outcome, or to that result. I'm going to look forward, not backwards. People with high emotional intelligence focus on the positive. I tease people. There are three types of people in this world. There are people who are proverbial electrons. They carry a negative charge everywhere they go. No matter what someone says, no matter what someone offers, no matter what someone introduces to them, they focus on the negative. Everybody knows someone who is an electron. And if you don't know anybody who's an electron, you know what that probably might mean. Yeah, you are the electron. Now, there is also people in this world that we refer to as neutrons. They're neutral. They carry a neutral charge. I jokingly call them seaweed because they just go with the flow. If everybody's going this way, the neutrons go this way. If everybody's going this way, the seaweed goes this way. Neutrons have no positive nor negative charge. They're just neutral. And neutrons are not a bad thing. You have people in the world who are living life. They want to go to their job and do a good job, but they're not looking for accolade. They're not looking for more responsibility. They're just wanting to do the job. They go with the flow. And then you have those people that I call protons. Protons are people in the world that live with a constant positive charge. They emit positivity everywhere they go. It could be saying something kind to someone on the street. It could be saying thank you. It could be someone who looks for the good in life and looks for the good in people deliberately. Now, here's something I believe. As human beings, we choose our particle. We choose our charge. And we can choose to be negative, or we can choose to be neutral, but I think we can also choose to be positive. We can share positive energy with people. And it costs nothing. It costs us nothing to own a positive attitude. People with high emotional intelligence set boundaries. They understand that there's a limit to what we can accomplish. And the boundaries may be boundaries with their time. I'm going to give this time to this thing, to this purpose, to this idea. Or it may be setting boundaries with what they do intellectually or emotionally. You say, I'm not going to let that bother me for the rest of my life. I'm not going to let that bother me for the rest of my day. I'm going to let it exist the way it exists and compartmentalize my life so that that is not an issue. So if you think about those 10 things, most people know someone that fits one of the three categories. And even in my own life, most people don't know that there's a method to give positive feedback or to give negative feedback. And people with high emotional intelligence are usually good because they practice at giving feedback to others. I was a first-time supervisor when I was age 24, and I made all the mistakes. I wanted people to like me. I figured, if they like me, they'll do what I say. I put off negative feedback. I'd let it boil over until I had to do something about it. And I was not professional. I didn't understand at that stage in my life that there is a way to give feedback to people that's meaningful. There's a way to build rapport. There's a way to share your emotional response. There's a way to ask a powerful what and how question that allows someone to understand that whatever they've done or whatever they've said has caused a reaction in you, and you're asking them to get better at it. You're labeling it. It seems like this is bothering you. It sounds like this is something you're struggling with. It looks like you're having a problem with that. There are great ways to give feedback, and all it takes is a little bit of practice. Now, if you look at a scale of individuals, there are people who know and understand that to be emotionally intelligent, we also have to make sure that people's expectations are made clear. If people don't know what we want, how on earth are they going to accomplish it? So people with high EI are good at letting people know what the expectations are. They're good at letting people know whether they're successful or unsuccessful at the work that they do. In other words, think of it like this. When the work gets done, how effective are we at giving feedback? And how soon do we give that feedback? One of the most broken and dysfunctional things, I'm giving a speech tomorrow, and I'm going to talk about some of the dysfunctions that exist in the human resources and business community. You know, I don't think anybody that I've communicated with in the last 5 years will admit that annual performance appraisals are effective. Think about that. If you're a performer and someone waits an entire year to tell you that what you're doing is not absolutely at the top of your game, you're thinking in your mind, so you waited a whole year to tell me this? The analogy I like to use is it's like if you're a coach and you're coaching baseball, and at the very end of the season, you pull a batter aside and said, you know, if you would have changed your hands a little bit, if you would have swung through the ball a little bit, you would have had a much, much better season. So people who are high EI also understand that there's a difference between being a supervisor or a boss and being a coach and mentor. You know, if you look at performance as a coach, we are more focused on the how-to than the what. If you think about that, coaches are really good at working on leading indicators as opposed to trailing indicators. We understand that the more hours you spend in the cage, the higher your batting average is going to be. We understand that the more you practice your free throws, the higher your free throw percentage is going to be. You know, managers tend to look at results, and results are not unimportant, but results aren't the focus of people with high emotional intelligence. We want to help people, because it's in our nature to do so, get to those results. And we know that those leading indicators, those things that are proactive, are what allow us to get to those results. And it doesn't mean that people with high EI aren't people that look for accountability. You know, if you look at the word accountability, the root word is count. It is an account of what happened. It's not the same as responsibility, where the root word is respond, the ability to respond. The ability to count something, or the ability to account for something, is very different. And when you blend those words together, they're really more about blame than they are true accountability. So people who are emotionally intelligent are really good at giving people feedback and holding them accountable, which is what anybody that performs at a high level desires anyway. So I want you to think about a matrix, and there's 4 quadrants. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, these are people who share your values and they meet their commitments. These are people who believe in what you believe and they get the job done. These are your superstars. These are the people that if you lose them, you figure out why you're losing them and you want to plug the hole in the dam so that you don't lose them. If you look at the bottom right-hand side of your quadrant, you have people that don't share your values and they don't meet their commitments. They're the people that are not a good fit for your job. They're just not a good fit. They will never be a good fit. They weren't designed for the work that they're doing, and they don't share your values anyway. They may not share your value of hard work or teamwork or communication or anything that you find value. They don't share it. Those people are easy to deal with. Those people need to be dehired. Let them go be successful somewhere else. And Lord, don't give someone 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and then all of a sudden you tell them that they don't share your values and they don't meet their commitments. We've done them a disservice if we do that. The best thing to do is, if someone's really not a good fit, to let them go as soon as you can. Let them move on and find something that's going to be better for them. Then you have people in the upper right-hand quadrant. These are the people that they share your values, but they just don't seem to be able to get the job done. In other words, they are people that align with the way you think. They align with, you know, what you believe, but they can't get the job done. People who are emotionally intelligent understand that those people are the ones that are probably in the wrong role. They've been miscast. Everybody can't play every position. They are people that you need to look for another role. They have a great attitude. They share your values. Where else can you put them in the organization so that they might be successful? Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have to get rid of them from time to time. And it doesn't mean that you don't need to offer them more training or give them some sort of support, but it means that they're not going to be successful the way they are. And then you have the people in the lower left-hand quadrant. They're the ones that are the hardest to deal with. These are the people who, they don't believe in what you believe. They don't believe in your values, your set of core values, your philosophy, whatever it is that you run your organization by. They don't believe in those, but they get the job done by the hair of their chinny chin chin. Now, those are people that are difficult because they can perform at a minimum level, but yet they become toxic for your organization. If you have a high degree of teamwork in your organization and you have an individual that is not wanting to be part of a team, they're going to be someone who corrupts your culture, or they mess up whatever it is you're trying to accomplish organizationally. And it's important that you understand, just because they get the job done, it doesn't mean that they should have a place on your team. There are some highly capable jerks in organizations because people are willing to let everyone around that individual suffer just because those people can perform. And all it does is make everyone else miserable. In his book, Good to Great, Jim Collins said that level 1 leaders are those highly capable individuals. They're good at their work, they're good at their job, but they have a very hard time making it to the second level, level 2, which is a contributing team member. If someone doesn't share your values, it's very, very difficult for them to contribute as a team member. Now, if you think about where people stand in your organization, you typically have 3 different types of individuals. People who are emotionally intelligent understand that if you have people who are really, really strong players, we often punish them by giving them more work because they'll do the job. We don't have to check, we don't have to go validate. If they're going to come in on Saturday, we don't have to come in and make sure the work is done. So we inadvertently end up punishing our best people because they're good at their work. And then you have the people on the other end of the spectrum who rarely get the job done effectively and possibly struggle with, just meeting the minimum objectives of any criteria that you set before them. And these are the people that you don't dare ask to come in on a Saturday, because if you do, you got to come in and check their work. You don't dare ask them to work on an important project. So we unintentionally punish our best people for being good at their job and reward our worst people for being bad at their job. And everybody in the middle is looking. All of these people in the middle are looking at what's going on. And the people who are poor performers call the good performers suck-ups or sycophants. And the people in the middle are saying, you know what? If you volunteer around here, you get punished with more work. So there's a little bit of, I think, wisdom and understanding that if we're good at being intelligent enough and willing to recognize that there are people that don't carry their load, that don't do the work, if we are good at holding them accountable, then we get rid of those people. The people that are in the middle tend to align themselves better with the A players. So if you think about that, if you have high emotional intelligence, you understand that if we don't get rid of the poor performers, we hurt, we stress, we take away from the good that our best performers accomplish. So I want you to think about this. In life, there are pros and there are amateurs. Pros are very emotionally intelligent. Pros understand that it's not something that we need in order to be effective. It's something that we must have to be good with our employees. If we're not emotionally intelligent, then we disrespect the game of life. We disrespect the work that's important for people who aspire to be leaders. Pros know that nothing is free. Pros know that all of the blood, sweat, tears, and failures that have gotten you to where you are today were something that was important in order for you to be the human being that you are. I want you to think about something. You're the average of the 10 people you hang out with. If you look at those 10 people, you're the average of those 10 people. If you want to change who you are, change one of those 10 people. Change the environment that you work in. Change the environment that you play in. Change the environment that you thrive in so that you can become a pro in life. Surround yourself with pros. Here's my last challenge to you. I want you to remember, done is better than perfect.